Some days you gotta stop to check the stupid. All right, folks, welcome inside the numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them and share them far and wide. Some days you do have to stop to check the stupid, in case you didn't hear me during the opening. It's just a fact. It's a fact of this. I wish more people would do this, because then maybe we could it would help combat some of the ridiculous things that we see online or even in the media on a daily basis. I mean, it's a daily basis now that there's dumb stuff like this and dumb talking points. And as I thought about it, I got to pick one specifically, because I've noticed lately that on X, we're all being spoon-fed talking points. Now, and it's like, Rich, of course. No, there's something seriously wrong, and it's been going on now for a while with a site like X. It's not alone. Of course, they're not, the only offender here. But I know what the talking points are for each of the parties that literally go out to all the people who make their way onto various shows every day. There's only a couple of firms that will do this, like, the ones that are, giving out the talking points for the DCCC, right? Or the NRSC, right? And the White House on the right, by the way, is typically the one who tries to drive the conversation. And they're not poll testing, or not as much as they should be by people that they should have doing it, but they're not poll testing this stuff out. Democrats have always been different. They do. They very much do. And they have a few. One is a major polling firm. It's probably the biggest Democratic polling firm that is used in the country. And then some of the other guys are just kind of like hitmen, right? They're communication strategists and people who are political hitmen. There's no other way to put it, right? And they will put out talking points on the left. And I've noticed now for a while, right? And Elon Musk buying X was something that was lamented by the left. It did for a while lead to a more free speech platform, but I think Elon's gotten distracted. I do. And I think he probably does not see what is happening on his own site, or maybe he does. And because I don't think so, especially not since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but maybe at one point he thought, the hell with it, and we'll just let it happen. But very clearly, you can see these Democratic talking points go out. The media will adopt them. And then all of these paid influencers on X will regurgitate these lies. And then you'll see I just saw Chuck Schumer put one out before. We can go over a couple of topics that I know specifically are talking points. I'll tell you about them. Okay. By the way, you might have guessed, but the White House, Trump is demolishing the White House, is most definitely one of them. Caroline Leavitt yesterday during the press conference said that the president was only talking, the president's focus is on, the renovations to the ballroom and installing a ballroom, by the way, that has long been a conversation in the dilapidated part of the White House where Donald Trump is renovating. I mean, it's ridiculous. But we see a very well-known clip artist, right? And he's a propagandist on X. He's been doing it for a very long time. It's a very well-known account, right? ACYN goes out there and puts out a very edited video. So what you don't see is that she is asked specifically about other renovations. This is a perfect example. Not late last night. After that happened, by early evening, Democratic talking points go out. Like, everyone focus on Caroline Leavitt saying that the president's number one focus is the ballroom that he's renovating, that he's having renovated in the White House. And it's dishonest, of course, but then they all jump on it. And you may have seen all of them jump. I think what's different now with Twitter is that you're seeing and I'm seeing all of this crap, even though we don't follow these accounts. And you can pay to have this stuff boosted. You can. But I mean, guys, somebody like me to see the Krasensteins 100 times a day is ridiculous. The Krasensteins are paid propagandists. It's not a shock. This shouldn't be a surprise for anybody. Maybe it is if you're on the left and you didn't know that, but they're paid to put out bullshit. That's what they do on a daily basis. They make a living doing it. All right. They had website problems in the past. If you don't, the pay for play issues in the past, if you don't know that. All right. So they're well-known people to do this. And then you see all of these other accounts, many of whom are somewhat new. They're part of this wave of the new progressive media consultant and media consulting class that is in the Democratic Party, you may have guessed they ran Biden's communication into the ground and also blew Kamala Harris's campaign, although they were never going to win, right? So, but they were just ridiculous. I mean, these people think stuff like that is somehow important. The only reason that Democrats are doing as well as they are doing going into the midterms is because the Trump administration has lost the plot. And I don't think it's any secret that I feel that way. I don't only feel that way. That's the results of our work that we have been doing in various states and nationally. They know it. They've seen it, right? I mean, if you're still over in Israel wailing at the wall, you lost the effing plot. Americans care about the cost of groceries when they head to the Pathmark or the ShopRite or the Harris Teeter or the Publix or whatever the hell it is you have in your neck of the woods. You know what I'm talking about. Nobody cares about Iran anymore. Nobody cares about this. And to the president's great credit, he wanted the summit to be it and then to move on. Some of you may have seen Robert Barnes bashing Rubio the last couple of days. He's not pulling that out of thin air. It does appear that every time Donald Trump is ready to move on and pivot back to domestic policy, Marco Rubio does this. And some of us strongly suspect he's doing it on purpose because Marco wants to run for president. I don't know if that surprises anybody, but he does. So some of us are starting to wonder if this is intentional or not. But the president needs to get back to domestic politics or they're going to be cooked. And that's it. That's because that's what Americans want. But the messaging the Democrats are doing, it's not brilliant. Republicans are hurting themselves. All right, so I'm bringing this up because the other one is redistricting. And this is a big thing. We've been seeing it for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. First of all, Republicans did not pull Texas out of thin air. All right, this started with what happened in Illinois, but I digress. It doesn't seem the biggest problem that so far is that I don't think people understand how this process works at all. There are people, including these talking points. One of the talking points memos that went out was actually to say this happened under Donald Trump. The census occurred under Donald Trump. So if we can get people to believe that I don't know what Republicans are whining about right now. They did this. If we can get people to believe that, they'll buy this idea that Texas is just Donald Trump's power grab, and they'll buy that a lot easier. Well, they're relying on your ignorance to believe, I guess propaganda is the right word, but to believe a talking point like that. Folks, the census is not the same as reapportionment. And reapportionment isn't even the same as redistricting. Those are two words that sound alike and one that don't sound alike at all. And all three of them represent three different stages in the entire process. One of them did occur under Donald Trump. The other two did not. And we'll get into how this works. And I'm going to deal with this pretty quick because Laura says I don't answer enough questions on Friday anymore. So I'm going to do my best because I really still do want to, I want to save some time for going a little bit further in what my comments on Wednesday were about with Charlie Kirk's case. I really feel like it's about to be this could go horribly wrong. So I want to make sure I'm on the record here in case it does. And the right absolutely blows a freaking gasket because this gets mishandled. And sometimes it's not even like you can blame them for mishandling it. Things happen in the court of public opinion, which poisons the potential juror pool. And then there's almost nothing a prosecution can do once that happens, or a defense. It can happen to both sides. But so I'm going to do my best here, squeezing this all in as fast as I can. All right. So anyway, these are the facts. This is how we go from having one Congress to another Congress after the census, which is the decennial census, is conducted. Every 10 years, we get the federal government. I know this is going to sound so, I'm not patronizing you folks if you know what I'm saying. I'm telling you there really are a lot of people who don't know this. So if you are, and I know most of my listeners are savvy and you guys understand this, but I'm telling you, I've been watching closely and people don't get this at all. All right, so I'm going to do this like I'm speaking to somebody who has absolutely no clue about this process whatsoever. All right. So we get the census. And if you recall, while the census was in fact conducted under the Trump administration, it was really done with his objections. Why? Because the Commerce Department under Wilbur Ross attempted to make a very important change during the census that was being conducted under the Trump administration, and that change was simple. It reverted back to how we have always conducted the census up until about just 5 decades ago. Right now, it's 5 decades. It wasn't even at that point. It wasn't even 5 decades. And that very simple change is we're not counting illegal aliens. Those who reside in the United States will not be counted. The way they went about it left them open to a lawsuit. They were going to be sued anyway, regardless. And the Supreme Court took a very cowardly position and said it's not that the president can't do this. It's that this president didn't go about it the right way this census. It was a very cowardly ruling. And of course, the leftists on the court, signed on. They wrote, there was, I believe, 2 additional opinions, but they'll take the majority for what they'll take whatever they can get. But they had they even went further, saying no, they can't do this at all. You can't not count illegals. I mean, it's crazy. That is, of course, how the country did it for most of its history. It did not count those who reside here illegally, because, of course, that count later is relevant during the later process of reapportionment. All right, that was not done under Donald Trump, and that's where a lot of this lie comes from. While the counting, of course, occurred, the survey itself occurred under Donald Trump's administration. It's not like it was done the way he wanted it done. He was handicapped. He was handcuffed to do it the way that he wanted to do it. Why? Because illegal aliens should not... How many people reside here illegally should really not be relevant to federal funding, which is also, of course, dictated by that process later. But, it all starts with the counting during the census, the actual survey itself. And, of course, what does it matter about their population totals when it comes down, again, to that later process of reapportionment? We're talking about how many districts does this state get? That's reapportionment, by the way. That their presence here should bear no weight on that. And the fact of the matter is, no matter what map in Virginia, we're going to talk about a little bit the latest of what's going on with Virginia, and I'll explain the law as best I can to you guys, and why Republicans, they still could come out ahead here, but like what's going on and failing in Indiana because they don't have spines is exactly the Republican Party's problem. But let's stay focused for a second. How many congressional seats you get or your state's electoral college votes should not be impacted by the number of illegals that you have in your state. And in fact, if we did not count people who resided here illegally in the United States, Democrats, and I'll be fair because I gave a different estimate to different people that others gave, I'm willing to at least say, fine, your number is close. I think it's 27. Others said it's at least 20. Let's say it's just at least 20. If we didn't count illegal aliens in the U.S. Census, Democrats would have a very hard time gaining control of the House of Representatives at all. At all. It would be at least 20 seats, upwards of 27, that would just be off the table and gone. And they would have a very difficult time, which they're going to anyway, in the future. In this upcoming election and the election after that, just going to get increasingly difficult in the short to the midterm. And I'm saying this in relevant terms because, of course, we only have a presidential election every 4 years. Maybe 2 decades from now, it'll be different. But in the short to midterm, it's going to get increasingly difficult for Democrats to even win the White House. That firewall that once was the blue wall in the Rust Belt is not even going to be enough soon. So for people who don't know, it was actually easier for Donald Trump to win the presidency in 2024 than it was for him to win the presidency in 2016 because of the number of electoral votes that various states got. Blue states are losing electoral votes. Red states are gaining electoral votes. So as long as they hold the Sun Belt, or most of the Sun Belt, you pluck off Wisconsin or you pluck off Pennsylvania, it's over. It used to be that Republicans before that had to run the table. They had to win back North Carolina and Virginia, which they lost in the Obama era. And they had to, of course, keep Ohio, keep Florida, and keep Arizona, keep Georgia. And then they would have to find something else somewhere at least, maybe even add New Hampshire to it, depending on the combination. And so they were basically in a position where they had to pull a royal straight flush. That's the position that Democrats are finding themselves in soon. All right. So when you look down ballot, it becomes, it's like a trickle down. You know, if you're not and the Democrats' way out of this, hold on one second. And the Democrats' way out of this is to continuously make sure that we do count these people who reside here illegally so they can have a chance at least at the House. Republicans used to have this structural advantage built in. Now the tables have turned, right? It's just because of the realignment in our politics and everything, it's just becoming, everything's getting flip-flopped on their heads, and Democrats are finding themselves in this position that the Republicans once found themselves in as well. All right. But in any event, understand for now, the census is the actual survey. And that was done with the objection of the Trump administration and how it was conducted. It was done under the Trump administration. But the idea that you could say, but all of the lines were redrawn and the districts were done under Trump. This is their fault. I don't know what the rights are. What's MAGA bitching about? Is totally false. Reapportionment did not occur, which is when we decide, how many districts we're going to get, how we're going to make sure it's allocated by population. That is reapportionment, and that was done under Biden. And then after reapportionment comes redistricting. Right? I just don't, it's like basic stuff. Sometimes I think it's basic, and I have to remind myself that most people don't understand this. And definitely during redistricting, even though reapportionment went wrong for Republicans, because once they lost the battle on whether or not they were going to count, those who reside here illegally, once they lost that battle, reapportionment was always going to be favoring Democrats regardless. I mean, regardless of what they did, whatever actions they took, that was always going to be the case. But where they had a chance to fight and try to equalize it a little bit, to level the playing field, was during redistricting. They put fat and incompetent Chris Christie in charge of the very beginning of that effort, and it bombed, and it bombed spectacularly. Republicans are just not good at this stuff. They're just not. And now they're finding themselves in this position. And yes, it's more of a reactionary policy than a proactive policy. It's a reactive and proactive. But understand, again, redistricting, which occurred under Biden, was highly favorable to Democrats. Not just favorable. Democrats have an advantage they do not deserve. They have it from how the damn census was counted, number one. But even in that final process of redistricting, which is different than reapportionment, and that during that process is when we start to redraw, we are presented, whether they have independent commissions, which I don't like, or the legislature does it themselves. We have what are called iterations of different maps that will then go over and debate and decide, okay, which ones are going to pass, or which one is going to be adopted by the commissions, if there are commissions in the states, like in the case of California, until, of course, they needed that commission in California to take away your power to decide your own redistricting efforts. But now they want to get rid of it because they need partisans in the legislature to add more seats. That's what Prop 50 is all about. They want you to vote yes on that so you can temporarily be presented back with a fake power they stole from you in the first place. And then the prop even it's codified in the proposition, which is hilarious, once this is done, they're going to strip you of that power again, and it'll go back to them giving their friends jobs on these fake independent commissions that are definitely partisan, and they'll strip you of the power all over again. And it's going to pass with flying colors because so many Americans don't understand the basics of what I'm saying here. This is just why I'm taking the time to go over this. All right. Anyway, during redistricting, Republicans definitely did not get it's something they got swindled on, right? North Carolina, they got the map passed. I think it was Wednesday. If I have to go back and check my little calendar, it was Wednesday. They got that map passed. However, I did detail on Twitter an exhaustive story about how we even got here in North Carolina. The crying and complaining from the left is all about the 1st Congressional District. Well, everyone knows the flawed census to begin with. It is flawed. Undercounted Eastern North Carolina. So the 1st Congressional District was drawn more blue than it should have been. And in the first iteration, done during redistricting, that did pass, which former Governor Roy Cooper signed because he played chicken in a process over the budget and lost that game of chicken. That was a different map that did consider, because of course everyone in Charlotte knew, you know what, let's just shut up and eat and take this, because everybody knows that the census wasn't really done right anyway. And he signed it knowing he had an ace up his sleeve, and that ace up his sleeve was the fanatical left-wing state Supreme Court, which he went to so he could renege on his deal with Republicans. They said the map was racist and had to be redrawn in the most ludicrous opinion you'll ever read. By the way, the voters of the state of North Carolina elected the legislature who drew that map. Then they decided to go to the ballot box and throw those judges off of the bench, and it became a Republican majority court. Then they reelected Donald Trump. They elected more legislatures. They elected Ted Budd. There was a whole bunch of elections in between in which Republicans won. That led to this week and them redrawing the map that was closer to the first map they had anyway, which Democrats had agreed to. That's what I'm saying. If people understood the process better, they'd know how to smell and sniff out bullshit a lot easier, right? Like, oh, Republicans are just doing this for Donald Trump. And maybe they are, but in fact, they're just righting a wrong that occurred during the process of redistricting anyway, where Democrats who repeatedly do this run to judges who have no role here. And historically, they have had no role in this. This is something that you guys should decide. And that's why I don't like independent panels. There's nothing you can do if you feel like this crony panel, which it is. These are crony panels. Nobody is there, folks, to throw out of office if you don't like the iteration that they adopt. There's nobody there to hold accountable if they do a partisan job or they do an unfair or unjust job. Because hilariously, what they're doing in California is an injustice against Hispanics, particularly working Hispanics. That's who they're screwing the most. But guess what? There's nobody that those Hispanic voters can go and throw out. There's nobody they're going to be able to do that to once this process and this proposition is done. But they don't, and honestly, many of them apparently from polling are voting against themselves. But they don't know because this process is too convoluted for most people to want to learn. So that's why we're taking the time to try to do that. Anyway, the latest is Virginia, because it looks like Indiana Republicans are gonna shit the bed as usual. What a surprise! And you had JD Vance. And I don't know if he wants me to say this, but you basically had JD Vance threaten them, if you don't do this, we're going to primary each and one of you son of bitches. And some of them just simply don't care. I think some Republicans now are starting to gamble with they're starting to gamble that, this administration's not going to focus quick enough on things that they should be focused on. So they're losing political capital. I really think that some Republicans this is the thing. Everyone is Trump's friend, and everyone's going to be JD Vance's friend when they're at the height of their, like, the pinnacle of their power. But once they feel like political capital is waning, they stab them in the back. And that's why it's very, very important, if you are a person of the right and you're MAGA or whatever, like, this is not going to work if you keep these people in office. So many of them are traitors, and your opposition, your political opposition, they're not that way. They are stone cold power brokers, and they're maybe it's because their ideology is more compatible with that pursuit of power and the use of power once they have it. Maybe it's more compatible than the right, but it's like, that's the difference between the new right and the old right. The old right doesn't understand that. The new right does, and they're willing to exercise that as well. So now, fast forward, here we go into Virginia. All right. And just so people understand, look, how can this happen? And is there anything that Republicans can do to stop it? No. Well, that's not true. They can win an election. Yeah, I don't think they'll be able to do that. They can win an election because, under state law, they have to get this passed by 2 legislative sessions with an election year in between them. You understand what I'm saying? So one House of Delegates has to pass it, an election has to transpire, and then there will be another. In Virginia, we're talking about off-cycle elections. If this was a presidential election, because once they get done doing that, they're going to send it to the voters for authorization in the form of an amendment, right? Which, if you're in Virginia, you'll have to vote on it. I think Democrats are smart enough to understand that as long as they're in off-cycle territory because of the realignment, sure, they'll get their asses kicked during presidential cycles. But when it is lower turnout off a cycle elections, you're looking at lower turnout with more educated white voters, even in the white electorate, and the most hardcore non-white Democrats. Because as of right now, Republicans have not figured out how to turn out their non-white vote. It's not even theirs. Trump's non-white new voting base. All right. They're not good at doing it. We can see some is, the working class white contingent. There is evidence that even in the early voting, there's evidence that many of them are voting in this election, but there's no evidence of the entire coalition coming out. And because, as I've said a million times, Trump's coalition. So how would they stop them? They have to win state legislative seats in harder to win election cycles. They're going to have to do that. They're going to get this passed in this House of Delegates. It's going to happen. It's the next one, the elections for the next one, that they're going to have to overperform it. Republicans are going to have to overperform it in order to stop it. So the state court can't do anything about it. The Supreme Court, I mean, I guess if it was a left-wing Supreme Court and the roles were reversed, guys, then, maybe they would step in, because the truth is it does go against a century of tradition, but there's no case law. There's no, so if it was the roles reversed, Democrats would be saying things like, this destroys all of the norms that we've been accustomed to, right? But that's it. And if the roles were reversed and the court was hearing it, it was their court, they would say, well, there's nothing in the law. This destroys all the norms in the state. So it's on, so we're not going to allow it. So they make up something, because that's the difference between the right and the left. They would make up something. But for right now, there's simply no way that they could bring it to the state Supreme Court. And honestly, there's nothing really the Supreme Court can do about it. I don't think they would even go out on a ledge. I really don't. And Democrats will also, what does it say? Let me go back and look. The state constitution says exactly how many days it's got to be. So if they're going to call for another one, 90 days. So the final amendment has to be put up for a vote no sooner than 90 days. Okay. Sorry. Thank you. By the way, somebody got that from, it might've been Christian or something. If that was Christian, citing Christians, so I don't have to go through and read the entire Constitution. Thank you. But I did know that there was a time constraint, and maybe Republicans can finesse something with the timing. But by that time, in truth, they're not going to control much in way of the state government. That's just what I believe. So we'll have to see. But you didn't talk about gerrying. I mean, this is bad. They would get every seat but the 9th. All right. So you're talking about 3 pickups for Democrats in the state of Virginia if they get this map. So that would mean it would be incumbent on Ron DeSantis and Florida Republicans to carve the shit out of Florida to offset this now that Indiana shit the pot. All right. So just so everybody gets that. But again, before we move on, because it's already 2:34, and if I don't answer some super chats today, Laura's going to have my head. There is the census, there is reapportionment, and then there is redistricting. If you watched Inside the Numbers all through that year and 22, you would be well versed in this. But if you didn't, then you're probably susceptible to believing the bullshit and the propaganda that you see on social media. The census occurred under the Trump administration. Reapportionment, which is a very dry process. It just looks at what the census, what is the census? What are the census results? Okay. From there, let's discuss, what it tells us about population and who's getting what. How are the 435 seats going to be allocated across the states? All right. And then I'm just talking about what's relevant to the House of Representatives here. There's other things that are done under that process as well, but that's relevant to what we're talking about. That occurred under Biden, not Trump. And then after that is redistricting, which is when we actually draw the boundaries and the districts. And by the way, proposals on how to do that are called iterations. And if you really want to get technical, we make them in shape files and everybody uploads them to these cool little tools we all have to see what's what. And that's how we know it was Trump +3 or Harris +6, or nobody's going by precinct by precinct or zip code by zip code. It's just not how it's done. And everyone seems to think the census is a generic term that wraps up this entire process. And I don't know what MAGA's bitching about because the census was done under Trump. Bro, you sound like an ignoramus. Read a book, read some shit on your own government and how your own government is structured, how business is conducted, how the sausage is made, how 1 + 1 = 2. Okay. It's just, I'm sorry if there's probably 1,000 people on Locals right now going, right, because you subscribe on Locals and you know this already. But look on X, guys. There's a ton of people who clearly don't know the difference. Clearly. And Elon, I don't know. WTF, bro. Like, what are you doing? What is going on with your website? Because all I see are it's very clear you're getting, this isn't something that's happening out of the goodness of somebody's heart, folks. We're all being spoon-fed this, and people are paying good money to spoon-feed you this crap. And every day it's something else. That's the White House. And then they're very quick, too. I mean, immediately with the Reagan tariff thing, they were all right out there again. And, of course, the only ones who don't realize that the Reagan Foundation's not lying are probably the smaller percentage of people from these. There's 2 different people who would continue to make these claims. I think out of all of them, the smaller group are the lazy people who just didn't go and read the entire clip, which Viva put up immediately. I was like, wait a minute, that's not what Reagan said. And he put it up, and then the foundation itself put out the entire transcript and made the video available for everybody to watch, knowing probably full well so many people are lazy and won't read a transcript. But when it comes to these other accounts that we're just being spoon-fed, that's not laziness. That is pure evil deception, they're being paid to lie to you. You guys just, again, I mean, you guys are smart enough. Most of you watch, obviously, this show. You're smart enough to know, but something's happening that wasn't the case even 6 months ago. Online is becoming a cesspool of BS. And, I mean, community notes is just a joke. I don't know what the answer is here, but I know I've been getting a lot of complaints from people lately. And I mean, I know they're telling the truth because I see it myself. All right. It's 2:40. Oof. Let's see. What are we at here, guys? We're pretty good, right? I got time. Yeah, I mean, Eric, I think you're making a good point. I mean, I think probably what happened is that during the little breakup period with Elon and President Trump, he's a busy guy. And he probably pulled away, bro. And while he pulled away, they wrote themselves some cute little algorithms, and they're probably making a fortune on it. Probably behind his damn back. Who knows? But I don't have any evidence of that. I'm just saying, like, if you were them, would you not? I mean, effectively, they're getting better. While they can't meme for their lives, they do still have all the engineers ideologically on their side. They do. And if Elon's not watching it like a hawk, it won't take much. I mean, I'm just constantly seeing this stuff. Even after clicking, I don't follow this person, or like, so it doesn't matter. It's not at all impacting what I'm seeing. So people are right about that. There is quite a bit about, yeah, Andrew, I am thinking about Demon of Our Own Design. So Wednesday, guys, we talked a little bit about this, and I'm using this term because it applies to a lot of different situations we're in. But where did I get that term from? And I don't want to hawk the guy's book here, but I do think for book club, I think I might agree with you. I was going in a totally different direction, but I'm going to have to get another copy though, because mine is so old. It's all beat up. I'll get another copy for the book club if we do this. I think I am going to do this because it does apply to so many different things that we're talking about, Andrew. A Demon of Our Own Design is a book by a man named Richard Bookstaber, who was a financial services guy, worked on Wall Street and many different firms. I mean, worked with Jamie Dimon, worked with Smith Barney, worked with Merrill. I mean, there's almost nobody he did. I mean, this guy's all over the place. His career on Wall Street was fascinating. That's an alert. Did you hear that, Bing? That's an alert that flu shot season is here. Go get your flu shot. And, oh, by the way, while you're there, take a COVID jab. Abafango. Okay? It is Simama. Anybody speaking Italian? Go look it up. Take that flu shot and stick it right up your rectum. So, I like the idea of reading it, Andrew, because it begins with the Dutch tulip bubble, I believe. And he explains it, how it went down historically. So you can have a reference to how, it's a human being problem. How we really create all of these disasters economically, and not just economically, like a lot of things, a lot. But he's talking about the bubbles in particular, and the financial collapses that Wall Street has caused, or at least attributed to over the years. It's a fascinating book, but once you get what he's saying, once you get his overall thesis, it applies to so much. Those books where that's what, it was always described to me as, even when I was coming up and I read it, it was one of those red pill books where once you get what Richard is saying, then you can never unforget it. You'll never unsee it. You'll see it everywhere. And that's a worthwhile book to read. That, or like The Crisis in Leviathan. But I really think first, Higgs is a little bit more wonky. Bookstaber is not. For a guy as brilliant as he is, he's funny as hell. It's not a dry book. He is funny, and it's a lot of storytelling. It's a good book. So that's, anyway, whether we do it or not, I'm not 100% on it, but I read your comment the other day, Andrew, and talked to Laura, and I was like, I do keep bringing this up a lot. And she was like, do it. That's a great book. Do it. You should definitely do that for, book club next time. We were going in a different direction. We were going about the history of the national security state is where I was trying to bring the book club. But I don't know, maybe the world, things change, issues change. And I do tend to favor a book that's going to be relevant to what's going on, but also something that you can apply as we go forward and all of these other things occur. All right. And you'll realize it's something that human beings, like, there are certain flaws that we have. And unless you recognize them and you're constantly on guard for them, you're not going to realize that we're just repeatedly digging our own graves, or we're repeatedly creating these demons, or we're designing these demons that come back to haunt us, later. It's just, it's a cool book. It's a cool book. All right. It's 2:44. I want to play something for 3 minutes. I wasn't going to bring someone up by name because I don't care if she's got 1 million and billion followers. I still view it as punching down. We don't traffic in content like this, so I don't like to go through with it. I don't like to go into this kind of thing. But I guess, like, we really have no choice, because at some point I got to call it out. Otherwise, I mean, we're really off the effing rails now. We could show, should we do that first? Yeah, I mean, real quick before we do that, I am going to take a real quick break. While I am on that break, I'm going to play that entire video clip of Reagan, if that's cool with you guys, so you can see what he actually said about tariffs. Look, Reagan was a free trader. He was a free trader, but he didn't like the president he didn't like the president not having the power to implement tariffs if he so felt that he needed to do so as a negotiation tactic or freaking bullying tactic, something in foreign policy and diplomacy, whatever. He wanted that power, and I'm going to let him say it out of his own mouth. Where did all of this come from? Ford is dead now. He died of cancer. The real Mayor Ford, who would have been a rising star populist. Now his brother, the clown, is in Canada. He doesn't at all have his brother's populist, whatever. I'm going to stop before I get myself in trouble. But in any event, they ran ads attacking Donald Trump using Ronald Reagan's words, but they clipped them, of course. So the American media, you saw Viva jump on, what's his name, that loser who freelances for CBS, Ben Ryan. Ben Ryan has since deleted his tweet. He jumped on it. Is it CBS? I don't even know, man. It's like he writes for like every garbage paper and appears on every garbage left-wing ABC, CBS, whatever. I could care less. I would normally go and get someone's actual resume, but I couldn't care less about what Ben Ryan's doing these days. But he's since deleted it. No apology. Very clearly shilling for a foreign government. Got caught lying. All right. So this is actually one of what I was talking about. This was all over Twitter from accounts that, believe me, you do not follow. Yet, if you go on X and you look and you just look at home, scroll through your timelines, go through your, just your feed, which is supposed to be of people that you're interested in, it's nothing but these talking points, all the way down to accounts of Democratic entities. It's so obvious. Like, why would they care about what politicians in Canada are saying, other than, sure, you jump on them and ding them, but this is very clearly coordinated, and it was a lie. I mean, it was not true. All right, so that's only like a minute or so. I'm going to play that, get a drink of water. When we come back, we'll go through this other video of, isn't it, I guess, a sequel to the segment on Wednesday. I mean, I know not 24 hours later, after me saying, look, I'm warning you, you're going to blow this case. You're going to taint the jury pool. Not 24 hours later, this crackpot releases this video. And I mean, she's gone totally off the rails. But let's go with Reagan first. Be right back. Minute something? Who knows? It's a minute 28. There we go. All right. We'll be back in a minute and 28. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them. Share them far and wide.
Now, it hasn't always been easy. There are those in the Congress, just as there were back in the 30s, who want to go for the quick political advantage, who risk America's prosperity for the sake of a short-term appeal to some special interest group, who forget that more than 5 million American jobs are directly tied to the foreign export business, and additional millions are tied to imports. Well, I've never forgotten those jobs, and on trade issues, by and large, we've done well. Well, I've never forgotten those jobs, and on trade issues, by and large, we've done well. In certain select cases, like the Japanese semiconductors, we've taken steps to stop unfair practices against American products, but we've still maintained our basic long-term commitment to free trade and economic growth. So, with my meeting with Prime Minister Nakasone and the Venice Economic Summit coming up, it's terribly important not to restrict a president's options in such trade dealings with foreign governments. Unfortunately, some in the Congress are trying to do exactly that. I'll keep you informed on this dangerous legislation because it's just another form of protectionism, and I may need your help to stop it.
Now, what he meant there, and by the way, that's something that Gipper did so powerfully. Trump needs to take a lesson from this. He does. I may need your help to stop it. Reagan knew that he had the full power of the American voter behind him, and he leveraged that power in terms of us versus them all the time. And it's funny because as somebody who was far too... Look, you can't fault him for it. He was in the 80s. It was a different time. People were thinking this was the end of history when he was out of office. You know, by the time we got to George Herbert Walker Bush and Bill Clinton, it was the end of history. When he first got into office, that is not the case. But we were flying high by Reagan's second term. And it was a different time. And it was, by the way, there was no NAFTA yet or anything like that. So when he says, he's like, but I'm still maintaining my principles, my free trade principles, he meant something different than what we mean today when we say that. And what he's basically saying is the Congress, like they're doing to Trump today, are trying to restrict the president's powers to implement tariffs, which he obviously did on Japan. And he said, I may need your help to fix that. And he also said, you know, I'm being criticized as protectionist. That piece of legislation is just another form of protectionism. That's the real context of what he was saying. Also, we had this debate in 2016. This very thing, this very video. We actually talked about this during 2016 when the so-called purebred conservatives, who turned out to be nothing but a bunch of scam artists and frauds, posers, were saying that Donald Trump wasn't a real conservative. I'll never vote for Donald Trump. Everyone vote for McMullen in Utah. Right? We had this debate. We've had this discussion. The issue of Japan itself came up. But we're back here now, regurgitating the same thing because people didn't take their time. So Reagan's foundation went out and put out the rest of that. You saw where it says it was cut off. That's another perfect example of what I'm talking about. All right. But that was just a break. Let's pull down the Gipper. Hey, but he was the best at that. God, he was so good at that. I may need your help. Trump had a lot more political capital that he has since squandered. It's just true. And he should have been doing that before. Instead, unfortunately, he did go the route which most presidents take, which most presidents have to take that route because they don't have a pretext to make that kind of an argument or have that kind of relationship with the American voter. And I'm not just talking about with MAGA. I'm talking about with everybody. When we poll Pennsylvania, when we poll Michigan, when we poll Wisconsin, when we've polled the entire industrial Midwest, and you ask voters whether or not they favor the use of tariffs as a negotiation tactic, as an economic strategy, right, to get fair, trade deals, to get protections for U.S. workers, right? Whatever it may be, to protect American businesses. Yes, that sounds very protectionist. And guess what? When you just simply ask Americans, they support it. They do. Now, I know what other polls have said, but again, we've been over this a million times. How are you wording it? I mean, if you're like, God, inflation's through the roof, it's Trump's fault, do you support his tariffs? I mean, you're obviously going to get one answer. If you just simply ask Americans without bringing in the other bullshit, and you just pose the simple question, do you support the use of tariffs as a negotiation tactic for X, Y, Z? And just in a matrix question format, we're going to read you a series of different things. Please tell us, when it comes to tariffs, do you support them if being used for these things? And you will get overwhelming margins in support of them. And they did back then as well, by the way. The American public had Reagan's back then. Yeah, it's all how you frame it, Amari. It's all how you frame the question. And you'll see how they do it in the YouGov. Ordering to is really important, how they order the question, because obviously if you're giving a respondent or somebody that's completing the interview, if you're giving them information that loads the question later, you've tainted it. And the YouGov is notorious for doing that. And they don't even hide it. They'll put out a giant PDF showing you the order in which they ask people things. They don't even hide it. All right. She's going to kill me. It doesn't matter. There's not that many super chats, and there's not that many, at least I don't think so. So we should have enough time to go through everything. But this is very important. Okay. This is very, very important. What is show the comments on the stage? Oh, what? It's like new feature. Do you want to enable this? And I just enabled it. That's actually pretty cool. Maybe later, but I do like it. Sure. If it was for everyone, I would do it for everyone. Once they include locals, then I'll do it too. There are some on locals, but we should have time. All right, guys. I'm going to just play exactly what I'm talking about. On Wednesday, I said, as somebody who I don't know any other researcher or public opinion researcher, pollster, focus group holder, I don't know anyone who does the work that we've done when it comes to jury selection, jury analysis. So I was offering on Wednesday my thoughts, which is really based on experience, about some, which is leading me to be concerned. Some of the things people are saying leading me to be concerned that if he who shall not be named, who murdered Charlie Kirk, does end up on trial and doesn't take a plea deal, and even though there's other things that this particular person is interfering with that can actually mess up his prosecution, period. But I'm not going to get into that, one thing at a time. But if he does actually go to trial, some of the things that I'm hearing are, I'm concerned, will be used later by the defense to present alternative theories to the case. What do I mean? I don't know. Tell another story to the jury that gives them reasonable doubt. Even if there's overwhelming evidence that the guy did it, you could get some jurors that have gotten to the point where they're so distrusting of authority, no matter who is in power, that they could believe what they can believe, and that's it. And you're not going to change their minds. I can't even say it out loud. I'm just going to play the video, and then, you'll see. Let me just say this before I do. Extraordinary claims in this business require extraordinary evidence. If you're going to say something that is a bomb, way out there, you better have some things to back it up. Otherwise, you're just not only lack credibility, but we have to start questioning what your motives are here, and it's no secret that this particular person had been on the outs from a lot of like circles for a long time. And I don't weigh into this shit, but I'm telling you, this person has a big enough audience that they could create real damage in this case. All right. So I'll say no more. And let me just play it. And you tell me what you think she's saying, guys.
Aches for the fact that he gave so much of his life to Trump and to politics. And they just were like, nope, that is it. It serves us or it doesn't serve us. And we want to move on. And so here's a holiday. Bro, if they try to give me a holiday, what is with them giving people a holiday after they kill them? Why is that a thing? You know what I mean? They're like, oh, Martin Luther King, what about this holiday? What about this boulevard? Anyways, let me knock it off. Like, they're going to give Charlie Kirk a boulevard. They already did. They did in Israel. They gave him freaking boulevard. It's like, as soon as they give you a boulevard and a holiday, they definitely killed you. Okay, there's no question. They killed you. There's no way. That's like their signature thing. It's like that's what they do. It's the Fed signature. It's how they sign off after they murder you. They're like holiday and a boulevard. And it's never on a nice side of town either. Like Charlie Kirk Boulevard is not going to be a nice side of town. Anyways, I will be back on the 27th, you guys. Thank you guys for all the support throughout these couple of weeks, these last really kind of 6 weeks since Charlie died. And we will see you guys then.
Oh, there's Crowder. Wait. Play Crowder. Nah. Okay. Wait. Give me a second. I'll take a puff anyway. I did want to play Crowder's response. Yeah. Yeah. Hold on. I want to play Crowder's response. So now Trump killed Charlie? I'm sorry. Israel killed Charlie, or is she saying that Trump collaborated with Israel to kill Charlie? Because if you go back, because now you got our defender saying, no, that's not what she's saying, Rich. No, it is what she's saying. Listen.
My heart aches for the fact that he gave so much of his life to Trump and to politics. And they just were like, nope, that is it. It serves us or it doesn't serve us. And we want to move on.
Am I missing something? That is a very clear insinuation that the Trump administration had something to do with Charlie Kirk's assassination. Folks, this is I'm trying to watch my mouth here. Like I said, I've like recently found out that my kids, their friends, watch the show. Like a lot of them watch the show. So I'm trying to watch my mouth. This is crazy. If you got evidence to suggest that, then drop it or shut up. Put up or shut up. Right? No, it's not what she meant. What did she mean then? What does she mean? And then it gets twisted and contorted into Israel next. You ready?
And so here's a holiday, bro.
By the way, that's the one and only semi-true thing that Candace Owens does say here. It does seem like everyone who's assassinated by your own government does get a holiday, right? Martin Luther King, Malcolm X got a boulevard at least, right? JFK's got stuff everywhere. He's got the Special Warfare Center named after him because he is the father of the Special Warfare. JFK is the father of the Army's modern Special Warfare Unit, otherwise known as an Operation Detachment Alpha or Green Berets, right? The Special Forces component of the regular army is a creation. While it did come from OSS, from World War II, how it is now is definitely JFK. But there's myriad other, things named after JFK. So like I did find that part funny, but not funny enough to even chuckle getting through the rest of what she's implying here, right? And then just whatever. Let's just go. Hold on. Whatever.
If they try to give me a holiday, what is with them giving people a holiday after they kill them? Why is that a thing? You know what I mean? They're like, oh, Martin Luther King, what about this holiday? What about this boulevard? Anyways, let me knock it off. Like, they're going to give Charlie Kirk a boulevard. They already did. They did in Israel. They gave him freaking boulevard. It's like, as soon as they give you a boulevard and a holiday, they definitely killed you.
I'm telling you that if this goes to trial and there's a juror out there or two jurors, especially considering that jury pool, and I'm just saying that because of where it is, I'm telling you like I said on Wednesday, the right was completely gaslit by a fake poster on a 4chan board who was pretending to have top secret Q level clearance. They were all duped. Not all of them. Many of them were all misled into a disinformation campaign to distract them from the fact that Robert Mueller was a cover-up, not an investigator. The Mueller probe was a cover-up. It wasn't an investigation. Mueller's entire job was to give the Congress a pretext to impeach Donald Trump if they won and swept the House and the Senate in the 2018 midterm elections. They didn't get the Senate, which complicated things, but they did get the House. And then all of that information that Mueller gathered up was then used to pile on to Donald Trump into, 2 impeachments. And the right was duped into believing the complete opposite. And when Trump really needed some of his supporters and some of his online, personalities and influencers to back him up and to help protect him politically, they were run down the rabbit hole like a bunch of amateurs and duped into believing that this Q level guy was like out there telling. It was total BS. And I'm telling you that this is going to happen if this keeps up. There will be somebody who has it in their mind that no matter what, even if, and we will not say his name, even if the shooter was the one who actually squeezed the trigger, I can't just convict this guy because he wasn't really the one behind it. So-and-so should be on trial here. Israel should be on trial. Netanyahu should be on trial. Apparently Donald Trump now should be on trial. So we're not going to convict this guy because this is the alternative theory of the case that I have bought into because I listen to Candace Owens, and I'm going to vote not guilty. Or I'm going to hang the jury. This is going to happen. You know what? Can we just go a little bit further with Crowder? I'd like, yeah. Listen, I'm not even that big of a fan of Steven Crowder. I don't watch him that often. I'm not, a huge fan of Crowder, but this was what he said in response to it. And honestly, I couldn't agree more. He might even say, hold on.
Let me first be tactful here and tell you that outrageous claims.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
And this is an outrageous claim. Require outrageous evidence.
Extraordinary is what you meant.
Of course, as is par for the course, none has been presented. And I know that there might be a weaseling here saying, oh, well, I said the Fed, not the Trump administration. I said a boulevard in Israel. It's pretty clear, not clear. What she said was, the Fed, give you a boulevard. Yeah. When that's a sure sign that they have killed you. You know that they have killed you.
They killed you.
He was betrayed in the worst way possible, giving so much of his life to the Trump presidency.
Yep.
To politics. The federal government, the Trump administration killed Charlie Kirk is the claim.
Yeah, dude. That's the claim. This is like somebody who's gone off their meds. It is. And the reason, I don't know if I want to go down this hole and tell you guys this, but let me just say this. There are some screwy people out there. And if the right doesn't want to end up in the position the left is in right now, which is that they are finding themselves almost on a daily basis having to explain the crazy actions of their followers and their supporters. If they don't want to end up in that basket with the left, in that same situation that the left is in right now, they better be careful with this. And listen, this is coming from somebody, I believe almost nothing the Netanyahu government says. Yeah, after what? almost 2 decades of public support for Israel, certainly over the Palestinian position. In a heartbeat, man, they'll turn on you. The minute you disagree with one thing they do, you know what? I don't like how you bombed that church and killed all those Christians. Anti-Semite. So that's what I'm getting. So I don't believe a word that comes out of Netanyahu's mouth. I don't think Trump has been focused on the stuff that, well, it's not even what I think. It's what the voters are saying. He's not focused enough on what he ran on, as opposed to all of the distractions that Netanyahu and others have been able to get over on him. But still, this is crazy. That doesn't mean anything. That's not even a logical fallacy. I don't know what that is. That's jumping. That's more than a leap, guys. Like, what the hell is that? You need to base jump to clear that kind of space. Like, that's not a leap, all right? Like a leap from one to another. That is connecting dots that don't exist. And if you have the dots, then you can't say something like that without giving people the dots to connect. Like, that's not enough. That is it. He's 100% right. Only I would change what he said with extraordinary. If you make an extraordinary claim, you have to provide extraordinary evidence. And I'm just telling you, as somebody who talks to Americans every day, there are people out there who are going to believe this shit. And let me just paint a picture for you. Let me ask you a hypothetical. What does America look like in a hypothetical situation the day after Charlie Kirk's assassin gets off? What does America look like that day, on that hypothetical day? Anyone consider that? Well, obviously Steven Crowder has. But is anyone in that world, which is her own world, has anyone considered that? Even when you take into consideration some of the stuff that she said that I don't want to say came true. Again, some things are just for me and for me alone. They were between me and Charlie, and I'm not going to get clicks and like present them to everybody. So like text messages where Charlie is defending that element of MAGA that are not pro-Israel. I wouldn't even say they're not pro-Israel. They're just not on board with the old right's way of doing things with Israel, which is that let them take our time in the sun, whatever. Let them spend our president's political capital, whatever. Let them drag us into a stupid foreign war, whatever. Let them do all of these things when they didn't provide a single soldier to us, by the way, during the Iraq war. Not one. All right. Let them do all of this stuff without question, without scrutiny, simply support everything they're doing in Gaza without question. Like the young MAGA is done with that. They're done. That's not happening anymore. That's never going to happen anymore. But that does, and Charlie recognizing that does not equal where she's going. That's just not. And oh, by the way, I just want to give a hat tip. Oh, here's a great example on how they do this to you. Ooh, this is what happened to me. I was going to share something with you real quick before we go. I just want to give, actually, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. And Andrew, I did see your things. Just give me 1 second. I'll get there, brother. And I'll get to Matt and Peppers. Yeah, Peppers. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, he's welcome to say that. I am going to give him a hat tip with something, but I just think that's crazy. I mean, would I even be surprised by it? No. But well, with Trump, yes, that's crazy. That's nuts. That's nuts. And I absolutely rebuke that. Like I rebuke the devil. Like there's no chance that Donald Trump had anything to do with Charlie Kirk's assassination. That's just insane. I refuse. Whatever. Clock it. Take the clip right now. Stupid, crazy. I can't even believe I'm forced to say that. It's just so insane. But I don't trust government entities. But that doesn't mean you have the evidence to make claims like that. You don't. And if she did, guys, she would have shared it. That would be her insurance policy. Let me tell you, it's just so ridiculous. If you are a personality, especially one who's on the outs from even your own side, because she is. Nobody wants to take her calls over a turning point. Like that's, even if you're someone like that, you're on the outs, right? Your entire insurance policy, if you just stumbled across this information that the Trump administration in Israel killed Charlie Kirk, if you just stumbled across this information, your only play is to go public with it before they kill you. That's it. It's just so ridiculous. You wouldn't sit there like, but I got that info. I'm going to bring the house down. And just sit there, what? With your ADT security system and hope for the best? Get the bafunkel. Get out of here. You're so ridiculous. It's preposterous. What you will do is convince a bunch of people in a potential juror pool that there's all of this stuff and we're blaming this poor kid. Somebody else did it. Not guilty. Not guilty. There's also more to this, folks. Unless they've doctored them, I've read messages that are not public. Messages from his own phone that have, as far as I know, have never been public. Not Charlie's. It's just nuts. It's nuts. And again, Charlie trying to straddle Charlie was like this. He played this role, and I think he thought that this was his role as someone who really identified the threat, which was secular leftism to Western civilization. And he saw the Republican Party, as imperfect as it was, as a vehicle that had to be used to defeat that ideology in order to preserve the values that he loved and he cherished. And his role was to make sure that all of these different elements on that side remained cohesive and remained allied with each other against what he constantly tried to remind them was the real enemy. So him struggling with his, views or the direction that, because he had to represent. I mean, you're looking at the guy who did the Turning Point poll every year, twice a year. I know what the members of Turning Point think, and by age bracket, by age bucket, he had to make sure that those people that were the really truly the engine of his, and the product of his hard work, but the engine of Turning Point, they had to feel represented by the number one voice in the organization, which was Charlie Kirk. So he had to do something every politician should do, which is like acknowledge your constituency and what they believe. And yeah, it is true that he was beginning to see many things in a different light. And again, none of this is like, I'm not going to share some of this stuff. This is like, as a pollster that, Charlie trusted, that's the content of the stuff we talked about. That's for us. That's not for the world. But like, again, that isn't some bombshell evidence that he was betrayed by the people, who he was betrayed at the highest level by the people. Come on, we all know what she's insinuating. Come on, she's not even insinuating it. It's the most cowardly way of doing it. Honestly, with all the things Trump goes off the handle about, I can't believe he didn't go off the handle on that. I really can't. Now, he may just be like, it's not even worth it. And maybe he hasn't even seen it. But that's just totally, totally outrageous. Again, why am I even bringing this up? Normally, I wouldn't even pay attention. This is like, I don't even like traffic in this kind of filth. But the problem is, I know how juries make decisions. And I'm telling you, there's going to be somebody or multiple people who will be up at least to be selected for that jury who will have bought into some of this bullshit. And I'm telling you, that is how injustices happen. All right. All right. Let's get to some of this. Matt from Texas. What's up, Matt? With the lack of paychecks about to hit TSA and ATC, should Trump ask for TV time from the Oval to put more pressure on the Dems? I got to tell you, I've been a huge advocate since 2016 of Donald Trump using more Oval Office time. He feels that he doesn't want to overuse that. And I have always thought that's a big mistake and have always said that. The Oval Office is not just for your followers. If you wanted to do that, you could just go to Truth Social, which you do all the time, right? And Trump connects with his people on Truth Social. You are not going to find the rest of America on Truth Social. You're just not. You're talking in an echo chamber. And in order to reach the American public, what that clip of Reagan was Reagan's way of doing what Roosevelt used to do at fireside chats. You don't see Reagan all donned out in a suit there even or anything. I mean, that is Ronald Reagan sitting in his rancher gear, being Ronnie, and talking with the American public. And that's why he even said, like, I may need your help on this. He's not combative, Reagan. And I know Trump has a different style, but there is a different way. So the short, that was the long answer, but the short answer is yes. And he has always, honestly, he has failed to do that for now 2 terms, especially when it was the better time to do it, when he had the ear and the goodwill of the American public sitting at 55%. What was his high, guys? In our polling, not anyone else's polling. I don't care about anyone else's polling, honestly. His high, let me go to I already know which poll it is. I know it by date, so let me just go. There it is. 55.5. That's Donald Trump's high in our polling. Approve 18.1. And that came in at January 22nd. So a couple of days after he was sworn in his second term. But he remained until February with gangbuster numbers. That was the time to start building that relationship and talking to those people. And he just never did. I think there's another question to be asked now, Matt, which is would it work now? Would it even work now? I don't know. You pretend like you're debating or listening to people over, on a decision whether or not you're going to launch airstrikes against Iran instead of focusing on inflation and other things. You do that, and there's no other way to put it. Make a fool out of them, because it turns out you had never had any intention to pay attention to them whatsoever. I just think that's, I don't know. It may not even be worth it now without a dramatic change in tone by Trump. I really do believe that. I assume you mean our buddy Mark Mitchell, right? God, I hope that's not true. But I do think that Mark probably thinks there's something more. We've had conversations. I would let him speak for himself, but I do think, and I'll tell you right now, I think there's something more, but I don't know what that more is. And that's the difference, right? That's the difference between, how I would approach it, and probably even Mark, I don't know, and basically everybody else, other than these few crackpots out there who are very clearly more interested in their own clicks and their own views than they are the outcome of Charlie's murder or justice for Charlie himself. And I always think there's more. I just think a little different. And I know Mark does too, because we have had these conversations. Guys, if there was any other involvement by anyone else, and it definitely would not be the freaking Trump administration, it's just so stupid. If there was, it wouldn't come in the form of some, she's insinuating some like Mossad hitman came in from an airplane in Egypt or something, and then like raced out. I think there are things that are weird. I do. I think some people's behavior in the immediate aftermath of Charlie's assassination, I'm talking about the moment the bullet struck him, is inconceivable to me. As somebody who knows what it's like to have to be in tragic situations where there's loss of life. To just turn around and walk away, or to some people's like behavior is like inexplicable to me. And I do think like if there was somebody behind or helping fuel what happened that day, it would have been done on like a Discord, you know, with these like fake accounts, like prodding people, because that's what they do. And we call it nudging. And others call it nudging. I didn't make it up. They call it nudging. You nudge, just like the FBI nudged the members at, in Newark from the Nation of Islam branch in Newark, the Newark mosque. They nudged them to kill Malcolm X. They didn't go and send some friggin' hitman to do it. They nudged them to do it. And today that would translate into probably some chat somewhere where there's nudging going on and, you know, making the guy who might be considering doing something stupid, you know, like egging him on and goading him, right? But I don't know. We don't know that. You know, would I be surprised by it? No. But that's not what that's not what she's talking about. I'm sure Mark not either, but nothing would surprise me, but we have absolutely no evidence of that. If you're going to make some claim like that, then you need to drop that evidence or shut the up. I'm sorry. Pardon my French. Yeah, sure. Okay. You think they did? You think the CIA killed Charlie? Where's the evidence? You know, so if people are saying that in the comments, I mean, kindly drop the evidence in the comment section. I'd love to see it. I guarantee you have none. All right. Do you suspect something else happened? Yeah. Okay. And I don't think that Crooks, for instance, I don't think Crooks just acted on his own either. This is a guy with no persona of no real renown. He had no accomplishments, no achievements, nothing. And he just somehow ends up, you know, with a line of sight to the president. But I don't have any evidence for that. And I know people will say, Rich, that's because the FBI is not doing their job. Well, right. Of course. I get that. You know, but come on. That's like, you don't. If I was alive during the JFK assassination, I wouldn't have jumped out at 2 days after, 2 weeks after, a month after, a month and a half after, and been like, oh, the CIA killed JFK, President Kennedy. We wouldn't have known. Right? We still don't have that evidence all these years later, you know, all these years later. But I did want to just hat tip, because I went off the beaten path answering those questions, but we were talking about, again, this is coming from me, someone who's been warning the Republican Party about this coming strife, this coming division that's going to happen between their younger turning point crowd, the younger MAGA crowd, even the more low propensity people, somebody who may not have voted ever and just voted for Donald Trump. And God, if it was Charlie Kirk, was probably the only hope they had of bringing those people back to the ballot box. That's coming. Somebody, you know, it's coming from me that I don't subscribe to something until I see the evidence for it, is my point. And I haven't exactly been that friendly to Israel myself. And the truth is, I'm just reflecting what other people are thinking. And yet that will get you attacked. It doesn't even matter if it's your own opinion or it's not your own opinion. If you simply convey what public opinion says, what a certain group says, by this crowd, which is like the pro-Israel crowd, you will be attacked as an anti-Semite. In fact, here's Mark simply putting out, because we did talk about this, and I said, Mark, better be careful, Mark, wading into these waters. If you remember, when we first did it, we were getting attacked like viciously day in and day out. This is 100% true, what Mark is putting up here. He's teasing some new stuff that he has out. We have already done this. You guys know that. We've been over it. He says, what? The early data says Americans think accusations of anti-Semitism is being used to silence criticisms of Israel. You already know that that's true. And you know, further, the biggest proponents of that belief are actually in MAGA. Yeah, there are anti-Semites on the left, and there's that progressive wing, that really crazy pro-Palestine progressive wing, which is anti-Semitic. There's no doubt. And I suppose there is some anti-Semitism on the right. I guess there is. But the word anti-Semitism is being thrown around like crazy. The accusation of being an anti-Semite is being thrown around like crazy. If you happen to disagree with the public policy of a government, it doesn't make you a hater of those people. For instance, I criticize the United States government every day, publicly, on social media, on video, on TV, on podcasts, every day, every avenue I can possibly do. I will criticize them when they deserve to be criticized. That doesn't make me anti-American. That doesn't mean I hate Americans. Criticizing the state of Israel, the government, the Likud, unified government of Israel, coalition government, criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu does not make you an anti-Semite. It makes you someone who's not a proponent or a supporter of the Likud, Netanyahu coalition government. That's it. And Americans do think, and that's the thing, that I guess what it comes down to, what Republicans need to understand here with this finding, is that not only can you not browbeat these people, young MAGA, you cannot browbeat them. Jesus. People like Viva Fry and I tried to explain this during the bombing of Iran, all of that. You cannot browbeat them into submission. They know that they are the future. They know it. They know that they have leverage, that their friends who share an aisle, how else can I characterize it? They don't have. And the more you try to browbeat them, the more you call them anti-Semites, the more pissed off they get. The more critical of Trump staying overseas well past the damn summit, and his people, not him, but others. And again, you got the summit and Trump ready to pivot back, and 24 hours later, Marco Rubio is wailing at the wall. They're over it. And them wanting the focus now, finally, almost a year later, to finally be on them and putting America first isn't being anti-Semitic. And they're not falling for that shit. They don't care. It's just going to make it worse. Meaning they'll say, no problem. They'll pull, more and more people will turn into Russell from Pennsylvania. Remember Russell? I'm going to make them pay for this. This is a betrayal. This is not what we should be focused on. America first. America first. I'm sitting home during the midterms. You guys remember Russell, right? From Pennsylvania. Without Russell, you can't win the state of Pennsylvania if you're a Republican. You can't. Who else is going to join Russell as this keeps up? There you can clearly see, by the way, poll the elections, bro. Don't become another propagandist. It's literally his job. What he's doing right there is literally his job. And what is another propagandist like me? This is literally public opinion research, something very few other pollsters actually do. 100%. Good for you, Mark. 100%. It's quite literally his job to convey public opinion about these issues and about other issues. 100% his job. And because he has polled elections correctly, you should take his word for it. You know what? As a matter of fact, that is part of what pisses me off so much about all of this. The right just turns on whoever they want. He earned respect. He earned his credibility. Staying true and putting day after day, being the only tracking poll left, by the way, day after day, putting out the true reflection of the races leading into 2024. But something that certain people don't like is what? It means it's a, open season to bash him and smear him and to attack him. That's bullshit, man. The right's in an echo chamber. That really is where I'm coming from. The right's in an echo chamber, and they better get their heads out of their asses real soon, because I mean, I just don't really see what they're going to do after Donald Trump. Angie, Candace is too much. It's too crazy. I'm dying with laughter with the headphones on in a cafe and cute girls all around, and I look crazy. I'm sorry about that, bro. I got broski laughing in a cafe with cute girls all around, and they're looking at him crazy. Like, what the hell is this guy laughing at? You should tell him. The People's Pundit. You ever see him? peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. I gotta tell you, like 70% of my audience is female. I'm serious, or at least it is on YouTube. It's hard to get demographics from everywhere, like accurate demographics, but YouTube you can. And our audience has always been overwhelmingly female, which is good, because I've always figured, like, honestly, like, that's an audience I need to reach more anyway. It is. Ideas, not money. Oh, it's been a while. Where you been? Good to see you again. Rich, do you see any of Trump's messaging regarding the Midway blitz to Illinois residences? How so? Are Dems' approval ratings moving at all? You know, I think you'd find it, well, maybe you wouldn't. It's just a huge disconnect between the people in Illinois and his policy toward that state and what he wants to do versus those who are outside of Illinois. I haven't seen any of his messages. If there's like specific Illinois, targeting Illinois residents, I haven't seen that. It's Illinois is another one of those states where I think honestly that would be better off if, I don't want to say this. I don't want to sound like I'm excluding. I always try to avoid sounding like something's not somebody or some place is not worth resources for a party, because I think that we're healthier and we're better off when both parties pretty much are competing for votes all over the place. But since we know Republicans aren't going to really do that, there's a major problem in Illinois with getting funding for anything relating to Illinois. So I think New Jersey is probably I think they're more likely to see more return out of New Jersey in the short term, midterm, than they are in a state like Illinois. Democrats have a lot of voters that they orphaned in the state of Illinois, but they haven't gone through the process that we've seen them gone through, and a lot already have gone through and are going through in a lot of states in the mid-Atlantic, like Pennsylvania, even New York, and definitely New Jersey. Illinois is not as advanced yet because there really just hasn't been any effort at all to reach them. So while they're not on board anymore, because they were once upon a time working class Democrats, while they're not on board anymore with the national Democratic platform, they're certainly not on board with the Republican one. So, they're just not there yet. What else we got? Is there any hope for New Jersey still this cycle? I don't honestly, I don't know. That's the honest answer. I don't know. And I don't know if we're going to hit the target on New Jersey, which means I would just take the New Jersey funds and put it towards the next national poll. We're like, eek. I mean, you guys can go see the progress bar yourselves on Big Data Poll. If you go to the Public Polling Project, you'll see it. It's now October 24th. We have early voting starting. And by the way, in-person early voting will give us a lot more. I've said this a million times in this month. I mean, not a million, I'm exaggerating, but in the last month and a half, I've said, let's wait for in-person early voting. Let's wait for in-person early voting. Democrats, their return rates are going to rebound. They will gain on Republicans, and they will overtake them, which they have. That's all been happening. But the in-person early vote, even though Republicans are doing better than they did versus 21. And by the way, the same is true in Virginia. I really just don't know the answer to that, guys, unless I poll this myself. There's so much conflicting stuff now, right? There was some pretty trusted pollsters that came out showing it's a close race. Mark himself, though, said, I think he had Citarelli down by 5. I really would need to poll it myself. And then we'll know more when we get that in-person early voting date. I was waiting anyway. Let's say that poll funded on Public Polling Project within a day. I still would have waited until next week to pull the trigger on the poll anyway, because I want to see, as we will ask a robust vote intention question. Did you vote by mail already? Do you intend to vote by mail already and just haven't returned your ballot? Do you intend to vote early still? Okay. Are you going to do it in person, right? All of that. And then do you intend to vote on election day? I really have to see not just what the answers are to each of those categories, but also, because that's going to tell me what the turnout modeling is going to look like anyway. But not only that, but I need to nest things like geography. What areas of the state are we seeing that, right? And then, of course, by party or by vote type, vote preference. I mean, there's so much we would have to do to be able to give that a good call. I mean, again, it's Friday. We still do have time to fund it. We do have time to fund it. I have seen polling projects fund like that once we get closer to the race. Share it like crazy. For those of you who don't have the link, I mean, I'll put it in there now. I just don't know if we're going to hit the mark. I really don't know. I'll put it in locals. I'll put it in a YouTube. I'll put it in a Rumble. Hold on. Let me throw it in a Rumble. Ooh, I knew it was going to happen. That's me. Weird. You hear myself kick back. I hate that. That's a monitor button. But there it is. I just threw it in Rumble. I'll throw it in Getter. I mean, contribute if you can. But honestly, it's a huge help if you just share it. When everyone shares and it goes gangbuster, then you'd be surprised. So there's just it's one of these things where you have the media polls showing a race that's really not that close now. You have Cheryl's PAC came out with, I think, a Cheryl +9. I don't know. I don't know. My gut is telling me Cheryl's still the favorite. I just don't know by how much at this point. In the last 48 hours, I would have said this is going to be 3 and under. And we did say that on one of the odds. My gut is still kind of telling me this race is close, but I don't like to think of it. I don't like to use my gut. I like to use data. And we'll know. Let me see. Do I have any early vote data? More early vote data. Where is it? How did I do this? It's liquid one. Okay, there's that. Because we're doing all these tests. Like I said, the new server's been provisioned. It's done. Everything's been cloned to it. There will be a point where I pull the trigger on the final migration. So if you go to Big Data Poll and it's down, you should be looking at like midnight or 2 a.m. or something. If it's down in peak hours, I'm going to be pissed because, of course, I said do not do that. But we'll see. Let me just look and see some of the mappings we have. I'll do that before we go. It's already oh my God, I'm way over. I know I've been shooting the shit here, right? Where's New Jersey? New Jersey. By the way, if you guys over at I don't mind shouting out people. If you guys over at L2 are listening, man, all this new stuff you did is awesome. It's exactly what we wanted. It's just absolutely awesome. Ooh, I wonder if I'm still. I bet you I am. All right, where is it? Primary history, absentee ballot by here we go. Requested ballot date, requested by parties, sent ballot by party, voted earlier by absent. Okay, it's giving me all the new numbers for whether or not it's a Republican, Democrat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That can't be it. Is that still it? 92,900 Republican votes. So Democrats still have a roughly 180. No, that can't be right. Is it? Let me go and look at let me go to sheets because it's being all put on a sheet. Where are you? New Jersey historical turnout. No SDR. 25 general. Okay. Where's the total returns? Vote by mail requests. There's vote by mail. Here's the return. That's a return percentage. I'm looking for the actual. Oh, it is right. Oh, that's 100% right. 274. Okay, so there's a few that's less democratic. Okay, 274,601. It looks like there's like 2,000 that haven't been added to it yet because it was 276,577. That may be some modest trickling. Ironically, though, it does look like, what is that, 2,000? Just as many Republicans that are. It looks like a slight bump actually for Republicans, but we'll see. And you want to see what I'm looking at? I'll show you what I'm looking at. First, I'm looking at the New Jersey historical turnout spreadsheet. Boop. Okay. And you can see down below, by the way, that's from the decision desk. But if I go ahead and remove that again, let me get that off of there. And I'm comparing it to the new the mapping tool that we have. Boop. All right. So what you're seeing here is, and let me make this bigger. Boop. All right, so it looks like the new mapping tool, and maybe I just got to refresh. I'm not going to do it now, though, because it might take some time. What you'll see is 274,601, for instance, that have been returned by Democrats. It looks like the most recent update from the decision desk is 276,577. So this hasn't. It's reflecting a little bit about 2,000 more Democratic ballots than we're currently showing right now. Republicans, 92,942, and it looks like 94,509. So a little bit less. Actually, that does look like a slight, again, maybe a half a basis point increase for Democrats on their advantage on returns. Could be more. Didn't do the math. Just giving you a brief estimate. But it is still very, very close. All right. So anyway, it's important to have some of the in-person, because when we do the vote by intention, right, by method, the intended method, and we wait for in-person as well, then we'll know with real numbers, actual numbers, whether or not this is going to be a close race. We can just extrapolate a lot more. Right now, we're just guessing. We're kind of, if we don't wait until the in-person, which I think Mark's going back into the field too. I told him the same thing. I said, listen, if I was you, I would do what I'm doing, which is wait until we have some in-person data, because then it's just one less thing. In a polling, you're making a lot of assumptions, and one less assumption, especially a big assumption, is great. I mean, Republicans are telling us like right now that they're gangbuster crazy to vote. That's one very important data point that's going to tell us whether or not that's true. Because when we see Republicans starting to go gangbuster, it's always when it's in-person, always vote, in-person early vote. I mean, is there a difference? What states would? Well, Arizona did show some pretty big mail returns. Nevada, they did very well. But again, compared, that in-person was just exceptional. And it would tell it hinted that Republicans really were much more enthusiastic, even likelier to turn out to vote, which is what the polling shows they are right now. It's just how much that matters. It's New Jersey. There's a lot more Democrats than there are. There are a lot more Democrats than there are Republicans yet still. So we'll have to see. I'm old enough to remember when your show was 2+ hours. Yeah, it was. You remember that? Yep. And for the most part, I had a lot of people, Peppers, telling me it was too damn long. I'm serious. I had a lot of people always telling me, that's too long, Rich, too long. You got to slow it down. I know. Yeah, we'll have to see. And it can't be this weekend anyway, because I have a lot more interviews slated for the other survey, and that is taking up quite a bit of our time. You will see, it is not just a regular poll. If you want to get people to tell the truth, can't be done like that. By the way, not that it matters. It's too late anyway. But that mode, that method, whatever you want to call it, of conducting a survey or study is just a lot more. It just is, because you need to collect some PII on people, personal identifying information, which always limits the population because not everybody wants you to do that. So it just takes longer and you need more. But I'm glad it's important it's done correctly. So that's all right. If we were to get 2,000, I'll be stoked, which I think we're going to. I was shooting for like 3,500, but I think we're going to end up with somewhere in the neighborhood of a little over 2, which is fine. That's fine. And I'm talking about for the political violence survey. It's taking so long that yeah, it's taking too long. If I were to try to go for 3, I'd have to introduce other modes, which I already know are not collecting as much information, and we need that information. And what do I mean by that? There's other things that we wanted to ask, follow-ups to gender questions, background questions, childhood and education, right? Additional things that people aren't used to giving or providing during normal surveys, but we thought were relevant. Why? Because when we were designing it, going through some of the federal statistics from certain law enforcement agencies, we saw relationships to several different things, and we had to see whether or not those themselves are predictive indicators, or there's something nested with those that make it more predictive or make it more prevalent, these views more prevalent. And you'll understand more when it comes, when it's done, which, I mean, at some point I have to step on the brake. It's just, I was really trying to go big here, and it's just more work than expected. Yeah. All right. So yeah, so there's that. What am I missing here? Just remember, that was the thing I wanted to tell you guys about the other day before I go. If you do visit Big Data Poll in the middle of the night and it's down, you may want to try to just refresh your cache. DNS propagation takes some time. It may be that you hit it during the migration period. I don't know, but it may be. All right. Other than that, I think that's about it. Book club locals. Let me do a stream, separate stream about what we're going to do for book club here. Get your thoughts about whether or not you like that idea, or if we should just stick to the same thing, which was beginning to start to tell the history of the national security state, which is relevant too. I mean, they're both very good ideas. I just did like Andrew's suggestion because I felt like it applies to so many different things. And even that, right? Is that, are the issues we're seeing with the national security state right now, are they not demons of our own design too? So it's like, once you grasp what he means there, and he's applying it to the financial, he's applying it to the various financial meltdowns that we have brought upon ourselves. But it's more than that. It really is. So we'll see. Bubbles, you know? And these things predate America. All right? This is not something that is wholly isolated, to the American experience. This has been something that's been going on since antiquity. We do this to ourselves all the time. All the time. Yeah, I mean, it's a sad commentary, honestly, on Americans in general, but yeah. Yeah, have a good weekend, guys. Yep, if you guys are bouncing, have a good weekend. All right. Looks like we still have quite a bit, but I'm going to let you guys go now. Maybe go catch your next favorite podcast, because of course this is your first, right? Right? Come on. All right. Don't forget, if you like the videos, don't forget to like them and share them far and wide. We are everywhere, even streaming on X now. But the best place to follow us is right there. Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. All right, guys, I will see you soon. We'll have to, of course, go over, I don't even know, we might have to have extra shows this week, because especially when we start to release some of this stuff, it's going to be overwhelming. Like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday they're not going to cut it. we have way too much to cover. All right. So just to give you a heads up on that first and foremost. All right. Locals, I will see you sooner rather than later today to discuss what in the Sam hell we're going to do a book club. Sound like a plan? All right, great. All right, guys, have a great weekend. This is the last weekend, by the way, where you can go to a pumpkin patch with your family before it just gets too crazy and there will be nothing good left to pick. So go enjoy yourselves. It's a beautiful fall day outside. I'm going to go do the same. All right, guys, all the best. Thanks for watching. And as always, deuces. Maybe I'll go mow the lawn later with the real mower, baby. Whoop. Remember, census, reapportionment, redistricting in that order.